Bagheera, why am I different?
You are special, little brother.
Hi, Christian Bale, and welcome to
Hello.
the Quint.
Thank you.
You were in India to shoot for The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
And you were in Rajasthan, and it was really, really hot, I believe.
Very hot, yes.
Yeah. And now you're back here, maybe around 6 years later, to promote Mowgli. And you've been around Agra and Rajasthan again. Is it good to be back, minus all the heat and shooting that you had to do the last time?
Very nice, far more temperate now, but the added bonus of I've had a son since that time, so bringing my son with my daughter and my wife as well, and we've had absolutely wonderful time and lifelong memories were made.
One of your most shared pictures, at least in India, on Twitter, on social media, is, there's a series of pictures where you're gaining and losing weight, from The Machinist to Batman Begins and other films.
Right.
Though when you see it in a picture, it looks like almost doable and easy. But as an actor, what do you go through when you do that? And what kind of toll does that take on you and your body?
Oh man, it's miserable. It's horrible. If you're losing weight, nothing to it except for going to bed hungry and feeling miserable, not socializing with anybody because generally food or some sort of drink tends to be involved in socializing. But a great sense of really getting control over yourself. And then the complete opposite, when you're gaining weight, of just absolutely losing all discipline and just gorging like crazy like that. I need to stop it. It's not healthy for your body. That I'm in my mid-40s now. It's going to start catching up with me if I don't start being a little bit aware of my mortality now. But I've always very much enjoyed transformation, mental, physical. Sometimes it can be a great help to look in the mirror and not see yourself in terms of being able to remove yourself from any kind of a character. I'm glad I did it, but I think it should be in the past now. I'll have to try to learn how to transform myself in other ways.
Would you rather do that than do prosthetics? Would you rather go through that phase of transformation than do?
I think a mixture is what is what is possible, and then it seems now that there's certain things you cannot achieve with prosthetics, but it's coming along in leaps and bounds. And I spoke with not only my friend, but somebody who actually is the reason I'm acting, because I started acting because my family needed money, right? And I found, oh man, people will pay me to do this. My family were in dire straits and they needed it. But I looked for inspiration. If I was going to have to do this thing, I looked for inspiration of, well, who's really good? Who inspires me? And it was Gary Oldman, right? And he was the one who I studied. And I said, if I could ever be as good as him, and if I could ever inspire people the way that he has inspired me, then it will be worth it. And I called Gary up because he'd played Winston Churchill, and I was about to play Dick Cheney. And I'd already gained about 20 pounds by that time, about, not even half of what I ended up gaining. But I said, Gary, how much did you gain for playing Churchill? And he said, no, I didn't gain anything, just did prosthetics. And I'm like, no, you didn't hear me right. How much weight did you put on for it? And he went, I just told you, Christian, not a single pound. And I went, oh man, and it looked so good, right? So they've come such a long way now in the ability to do prosthetics and actually make it move and breathe and all that. And so I think I'll have to trust more in other people to be able to achieve that. But I did with Cheney. It was a mixture. It was a mixture of, yes, I put on a great deal of weight, but I could not have done it without the wonderful Greg Canham and Chris Gallagher, who are just incredible artists.
Be it Batman or The Jungle Book, there are some stories which give itself to retelling a lot of times, What do you think it is about The Jungle Book that makes it such an evergreen source of storytelling?
Well, I think it's very relatable in terms of survival, in terms of sense of belonging, of who we are, what our identity is. And the interpretations can adjust in terms of, you look at Andy's version, we also recognize that man has come to be very much the master of the future of the jungle. It was that to a certain degree in Kipling's era, but far more so now than ever before. And you can see the vast interpretational differences of the warm and fuzzy fairy tale, of the musical, and Baloo Bear, and floating down the river, these fantastic scenes that I remember and love, and the song Bare Necessities, just joyful. And you don't have to love one and dislike the other. I love them all, and I think it's actually fascinating to see Disney's most recent iteration, and then to see the Netflix Andy Serkis iteration now, which goes from the fairy tale version to this one being the fantasy that everybody has of wanting to run free with the animals, of wanting to be wild, of shrug off, the chains of our existence and howl at the moon and truly be wild. And Mowgli gets to do that, but then also learns there must be some sense of law and order.
Now, this is the first time you're in a motion capture performance kind of a role.
Right.
How liberating or constricting did you find it as an actor?
Every film, no matter what, no matter how many times I've made a film, it feels constricting to begin with, because you're trying to understand not only the style of what the director's looking for, you're getting under the skin of the character, and you almost always want to go back and reshoot the first few days' work. So with this, the difference, which is what I wanted to learn about from the master of performance capture, of Andy Serkis, is, you have cameras and a ring around your head like that. But beyond that, it's just about acting. It's about being truthful. And the difference with just doing your voice, where you're just standing in front of a microphone and you're not interacting with any of the other actors, is this: you're actually physically moving around, and they're going to keep that physicality. If you're close, it will be close. Andy and I actually fought and rolled around and had the fight where Baloo and Bagheera are having their very friendly, fight between each other. And it ultimately comes back to the same thing, that once you break through the superficial distractions, it's just about truthfulness, and that's what they're looking for in the performance capture.
I was talking to Andy Serkis, and he said what he really identified with the Jungle Book was this boy's search to find himself, to search for an identity, where he belongs. We all go through that at some phase in our life. Did Christian Bale also go through that, probably as an actor, to find where you belong and what you truly are?
Absolutely. I mean, that's relatable to every single person. I found myself, my family were quite nomadic, not always by choice, sometimes driven by economic necessity of being kind of pushed out of houses. And my dad was a master of taking difficult times where us kids didn't truly understand that we just lost our home, and instead making it into an adventure, And now as an adult and as a father, I look back and realize what he did, and what a wonderful dad he was in not inducing panic in us, but instead inducing a sense of adventure, even though I know for him, it must have been nerve-wracking beyond belief, the fact that he didn't have a place for his kids to live, for a while. And so there was that sense of adventure, and that really builds in you an ability to be a survivor, as well. But because of having to move so many places, I think that informed me very much as an actor. I didn't have a good education, but what I taught myself through moving around is how you're able to adapt to new locations, to new friends, and how ultimately, no matter how upsetting it might be to leave an environment that you feel safe in, you're going to land on your feet. It's going to be okay. And I think that was a wonderful lesson that I learned from adverse circumstances of my childhood.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. It was wonderful talking to you.